If a homeowner claims a burglar smashed their window to get inside, but the shards land on the front lawn, the story falls apart. Detectives call this a staged crime scene. The perpetrator tries to invent a false narrative, but the physical orientation of the scene refuses to lie. What remains in the aftermath tells the true story. 2,000 years ago, an anomaly just like that broken window was left behind in Jerusalem. Only in this case, the anomaly was a massive stone. A tomb was found completely empty. Today, we are going to treat this site exactly like a cold case, evaluating the physical and behavioral records to see what really happened that Sunday morning. Let's examine the perimeter. This photograph shows the specific structural barriers of our crime scene. We are dealing with a multi-ton limestone disc, designed to roll down a slanted groove and lock firmly into a trench to seal the entrance. The most common skeptical explanation for the missing body is a grave robbery. The claim is that a group of men bypassed the local security, breached the tomb, and stole the body to fabricate a resurrection. If that theory is true, we are looking at an elaborate staged scene, a coordinated heist designed to fool the entire city. And the prime suspects in this operation are Jesus' own disciples. So we have to ask, do the historical footprints left by these men bear the hallmarks of a staged cover-up, or do they point to an unstaged, genuine event? To evaluate the evidence, we use a formal investigative process called abductive reasoning. We gather the circumstantial facts, stack them up, and determine which conclusion provides the most consistent explanation for what we see. We start with Exhibit A, the psychological profile. Investigators always cross-reference the behavioral history of their suspects against the actual sophistication of the crime. Look at the documented demographics of our suspects. Historical records show the disciples were entirely working class, fishermen, laborers, and tax collectors. Furthermore, reports from the night of the arrest describe them as utterly terrified, scattering in a panic to save their own lives. Compare that profile to the tactical reality of the target. The tomb was guarded by a detachment of Roman sentries. These were highly disciplined, heavily armed professionals tasked with securing state property under threat of execution. To pull off this theft, frightened laborers would have to suddenly execute a coordinated, nighttime raid against elite Roman military protocols. The behavioral profile of ordinary fishermen directly contradicts the skills required for a tactical heist. Moving to Exhibit B, conspiracy dynamics. A staged scene of this magnitude requires multiple suspects working perfectly together to maintain the lie. When analyzing human suspects, investigators apply the concept of a chain of custody. For a staged cover-up to survive, the chain of individuals telling the lie must remain totally solid, year after year. Decades of police interrogations show us that conspirators are inherently selfish. When you apply intense legal or physical pressure, the weakest link breaks. They turn on each other to save themselves. We map out the pressure on our suspects. Hunted by religious leaders and the Roman Empire, they faced beatings, imprisonment, and execution. Yet historical records indicate not a single man recanted to save his skin. The chain never broke. A massive conspiracy where absolutely no participant breaks under the threat of death is an outcome rarely seen in modern investigative records. This scale weighs the competing theories. The stolen body theory requires a flawless tactical raid, a lifelong conspiracy, and total disregard for self-preservation. On the right, we stack the historical record, the profile of ordinary men, strict Roman military protocols, and unbroken, martyred testimonies. We return to the anomaly of the broken window. The evidence surrounding that empty tomb actively contradicts the narrative of a staged heist. Cover-ups require airtight coordination, a selfish underlying motive, and weak links that eventually snap. The recorded facts provide the exact opposite. So, casting you as the jury, I present the final challenge. Based strictly on the weight of the historical evidence and abductive reasoning, what is the most reasonable inference?